Hello everyone, my name is Rachel Maree. I'm the Chairperson of the ANZ Fontan Advisory Committee, and sitting with me today is Professor Yves D'Udekem, Founder and Director of the Fontan Registry, and he's also a consultant cardiac surgeon here at the Royal Children's Hospital in Melbourne. So thanks so much for being with me today to answer some questions for the Fontan community. We might start with getting down to talking about the Fontan Registry. So you've been doing a lot of exciting and important research lately. What can you tell the community about that?
So we, for the first years, have done the first goal of the registry. We've completed that, which was to define the outcomes, what happens to people with a Fontan circulation years later. So we've shown that it was working much better than people expected. We've shown that we still have problems and there's a lot of work still to do. Then what we did is we did an in-depth analysis of the body organs and how they're functioning, and the impact of the circulation on the heart, the brains, the lungs. And so we have completed the first set of studies on the liver and the kidneys. We've shown that yes, there's an impact on the liver and the kidneys, but it's quite slow. It's not as bad as the people could have predicted, at least for the first 2 decades, the first 20 years. It doesn't seem to have large consequences. That being said, everybody is aware now that you have to check the liver of anybody who's got a Fontan circulation, and likely as soon as you're in an adult, you should check it probably yearly. And that's some data that will come out. We have completed a beautiful set of studies analyzing the most sophisticated examination, cardiac exercise, MRI, brain MRI, the inside of the body of people with a Fontan circulation. And I cannot say yet everything, but there seems to be some exciting findings, things that are completely new that the people did not suspect, and may change actually what we do to them, not only here in Australia and New Zealand, but around the world. So the findings are quite new. We haven't completed that. We're on the analysis stage of that, and still we're already on the next stage, which is the trial phase. So we have a few trials going on. There's a trial that you do to check with some medications. What happens if you stop your medications for high blood pressure that some of you take, so the AC inhibitor. We soon will have a trial to test these medications for people who have kidney deficiencies after the Fontan circulation, because that may be one reason to take the same medication. We have one trial with a drug that dilates the lung vessels, which may give a lot of good to the people, I believe. There's a lot of hope around the world, and there's several trials on similar drugs around the world. There's 2 other trials I've heard about, which I haven't been involved with, but testing new anticoagulants, which may be easier to take and maybe more efficient for losing the Fontan circulation. So we've been quite busy, and now we're gathering money to get the next round of research being done.
Wow, very exciting stuff going on. How can the community get involved, and why is that so important?
So right now we have about a group of 150, 200 people. Every time we launch research projects, they come and they do whatever we want, and they always do. So we have, which is very good, because then we have a lot of details about a subset of patients, and that's very good. But it would be nice if we can expand that. And so we'll get to the end, but we are a leading group in research in Fontan. You should never complain about the fact that you have a Fontan circulation and you're limited with it if you're not trying to do something for it. And so if you want your situation to be better, you have to participate to research. So the things that I think it's essential, because it will that will give you more years of life, better quality of life, better exercise capacity, and also it will make you understand what the whole adventure you're part of.
How has having ANZFAC as an organised Fontan community voice been of benefit to the Fontan Registry, and how do you see that into the future?
So for us, it's very good to have ANZFAC so we can test ourselves. So the majority of the research is mainly led by doctors, nurses, or other specialists, neurologists, psychologists, but we like to do it with the patients and the families, and that's why ANZFAC can come in. It gives us the dimension of whatever we say, takes in the heart of the families. It gives, at the end of the day, it gives a sense to the research we're doing. It's not for something abstract, it's for real people, and so we're working with the real people. And somehow I think it's important to have the voice of ANZFAC that is working together with the registry, but separate as well, so you're not influenced by whatever we do, and you can come up as a third party and saying, we think that is important, you're stepping out of the line there, or that's very good, and so you give us a feedback on what we're doing, and then we can, you can help us to reach out to all the people out there, because that's very important.
Great. How else can the community help the Fontan Registry aside from being involved directly in research?
I think that one of the benefits of the first education days that we see is that it's important to be a community, and if you are a community, you have a voice, you vote, you can influence politics, and so first of all, I think that what is important besides participating to research is claim your existence. Most of you wear shirts and t-shirts during the day, we don't see your sky, you look alright, but it's nice for the people to know that people with a Fontan circulation exist, people with single ventricle exist, and they work and they're fine. And so it's nice for the people, the general community, to know that you guys exist. So I think that that's a very important piece of work, and obviously everything we do in ANZFAC and in the registry costs money, and philanthropic funding is always welcome. I don't have to insist on that.
So the global Fontan research, you've explained to us all the wonderful stuff that the Fontan Registry is doing regarding research, but what can you tell us about what's going on internationally?
So I have been fortunate enough to be leading this Fontan research in Australia and New Zealand, and that put me in a prime position to move international collaboration. So I was willing for many years, even before I started to research on Fontan, to find solutions for this population. But to do so, I need to have sick patients, because that's the one I can help. I'm a surgeon, I can put machines in, I can do operations. And when I did the first study in the children's hospital, and actually the people were doing much better than I expected. So I thought, okay, I'll see bigger, and so we'll do it nationally, the whole Australia and New Zealand. Still, the people are doing quite well, and so it seems horrible to state it that way, but between 4 and 6 Fontan patients die per year in Australia and New Zealand. So it's an enormous amount for each family, it's a burden, but to do research and statistics, it's actually not enough. It's difficult for me to build up the knowledge to prevent death on such small numbers. So I found that it was necessary to enlarge the scope of our research and to have international collaboration. If you want to look at the most urgent and the most important piece in research for Fontan circulations, you need even larger numbers than what we have, the largest database registry in the world. So I've reached out to the most experts and those who have the most data, and there was a decision to create a group, the International Fontan Interest Group, and there is no a clear intention to have an international Fontan registry, to which Australia and New Zealand Fontan registry will be a big part. And so we can gather probably about 10 major centres across Europe and North America and Asia to have very quickly in one single registry the data of probably 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 patients, and then we can start working. And then we have a platform. We've organized a yearly meeting now, so we had a first yearly meeting, which I think was a success. And the people can come from whole horizon, so not only doctors and nurses, but patients as well, and present their questions or their data or their experiments. And at least we have a platform to do some research. So some of the trials, for example, that I have mentioned, I am not sure that we will be able to recruit patients or enough patients to answer the question asked within Australia and New Zealand. So we can reach out and say, listen, we've studied the first 60 patients and it looks very interesting. We're missing 40 patients. Is anybody interested to participate, given the extra numbers, and then we'll be able to complete the study. And it's coming from our way, but it can be coming different ways. So I think there's an active network that is creating itself. The US is really keen to have their own registry that could participate in the national registry. It's building up.
Wonderful. Fontan Education Day, we might talk about that now. So this year's Fontan Education Day is in Adelaide, Saturday the 8th of September. I know that tickets are available to purchase now. What can people expect?
So we always try to have something that is of interest to the public, so that, you know, if you're a Fontan family or a Fontan patient, you can come there and get information, a better understanding what the circulation is, what problems you can expect, you know, what solutions we are attempting. And we're trying to have it both ways. So it's an arena also where the patients are able to express themselves and voice the issue, because all the main researchers on the topic will be there too. And so we can hear from you as well. So if you think that you're not heard, that's the time to have a voice, and it may concern some physical problem, or it may concern the way the system works and the way you are seen, or any kind of things can be out at this time. It's always a good moment because it's so nice, and we have that feedback every time. If you mom or dad of a kid who has a Fontan, you may think that you're alone out there, there's nobody in your street or in your village or in your surroundings who has lived through the same, and you feel that you're on your own. Well, now is the time to meet other people, and so you can meet other people, share the experience, and you learn things, you learn tips and tricks of how to do this and that, but you have the feeling that you're not alone out there, and I think that's very nice. We have frequent flyers, so we have people who come every time, because none of them are the same. We do have some of the same conversation, but every time they're up to date and they want to have the last updated information when they come. So the idea as well of the Education Day is that we're doing a lot of research. Today, normally, if you participate to research, before the research gets back to you, you have to wait between 5 and 7 years, easily, because you participate to research. It takes 2 years to complete the study. You may have been one of the first ones to do it. Then we analyze the data, another 6 months or a year. Then we send an abstract to a meeting, wait 6 months if it's accepted. Then we go to the meeting 6 months later. You submit the paper. It takes about 1 year to be peer-reviewed and accepted and published. So it takes you a long time. And what we want to do in the Fontan Education Day is we come here and we give you the raw results. They may be, a little bit inaccurate. It has not been reviewed. It can be remodeled, analyzed differently, but you get the raw feeling of what we get firsthand. So you're going to be the first one in the world to know about the top research we're doing.
I couldn't agree with you more about how interesting it is, because I've been fortunate enough to go to every single Fontan Education Day, and I learn something new every single year. Yes, that's me. But so for the Fontan community, it's incredibly informative experience and also great social experience. How beneficial has it been over the past 5 years to the medical profession? What surprised you about what the community has had to say?
So the thing that is amazing is that you have, it's a real reality check, and the first education day are the best examples was we had a talk of the analysis of what was happening for pregnancies for women who had a Fontan circulation. and we could hear it was difficult and so on, and okay, you get the numbers, the statistics, you know, okay, it's difficult, and then you have the mum of a young baby who comes and explains that she had a Fontan and give you all the story on a real person perspective, and then putting both together gives you a real sense of reality. Then the thing that we're getting as well is we get sometimes some information. So I asked last year and 2 years ago, you know, a lot of people are on warfarin. It's heavy treatment. You have to check your blood, have a blood test, and so on. Then I asked the whole audience, you know, do you hate it, or is that all right? Actually, the people didn't find it too bad, which I was surprised with. We checked so we completed the research now, and the questionnaires, and it confirmed what we can ask the audience. So if you ask 150 people who have the conditions, I get the answer. It's not scientific, but I get a feel. So we can test, and often we have a discussion back and forth, and we can test the audience, and usually the answers we're getting are quite accurate. And so they raised the issue about migraines, and within the next 3-4 months we know about migraines in Fontan. And so and nobody ever talked about migraine in Fontan circulation before the first education day. So the research is better this way, and the people I have to insist on the fact that in the world where I give a lot of talks about our Fontan research, the people are very impressed by the component and sharing the information with the families and patients, and the involvement of the patients and families in the research. And I have been asked recently to even write a manuscript of what benefits we have from that.
It's really successfully, I know I haven't told you that I would ask this, but it's actually really removed that disconnect between the medical and the community. It's kind of a lovely crossover on the day, which has been beneficial. I can honestly tell you, by anyone I speak to on the day or afterwards, they find that a completely unique experience compared to what they might have experienced in the past, or people with another type of medical condition are not having that sort of experience. So it's a real credit to the Fontan Registry. Let's talk about exercise. I know you are very passionate about exercise and keeping yourself healthy, which is important for all people, but why is it so important for someone with a Fontan?
I have written, and I say that, and I do that now. Every time I see the parents of somebody with a single ventricle, I say, you know what you can do for your child, to be the best and live the longest, and say no, and so I say there's 3 things you can do: exercise, exercise, exercise. And so I said that the first time, the second time, and then by the 3rd operation I come back and say, and you know what you have to do? And say, yeah, exercise, exercise, we've heard that. Okay, good, so it's working. So the message is passing by, and it's based on a work that is done by Rachel Maree, and the team of Sydney has been very important in developing that side of the research. And they show that if you increase your muscle mass, even in the legs, you actually increase the amount of blood that is circulating in the body, and your exercise capacity increases as well. And so it seems like on exercise, the muscle acts like a pump. So now there's 2 quite good discoveries that have been made again by Rachel Maree this year. The people had talked about it, but nothing had ever been published, and we were the first one to publish that this year. Is that if you look at exercise capacity in the Fontan circulation, everybody believes that if you have a Fontan circulation, you are limited. And the reason for that is that every single study that looked at exercise capacity after Fontan shows the same results. So the VO2 max, which is the measure of the maximum exercise capacity, how much exercise you're able to do, the VO2 max is about 2/3 of the predicted value. So, and you look at different type of Fontan, various age afterwards, the same number come invariably. But that's an average. That means that as an average, the population of the people with a Fontan have 2/3 maximum exercise capacity. What the people have never looked at is that actually And we looked at, in our recent cross-sectional study, that's one of the results we got out already, 11%, so of 150 people, we had 14, and we have more now, 11% had a normal exercise capacity. So we would consider that 80% of the predicted value of VO2 max would be normal. I know that at the time I was much younger and I was doing a lot more exercise. I tested myself, I was barely above 80%. So I guarantee you that you know, doing more than 80% or 100% is really normal. And so it's an amazing finding, but it is possible for people with a Fontan circulation to have a normal capacity. And so exercise capacity, and that's revolutionary as such, because we tend in the medical field to look at the bad things that happens. And we look at bad things and we see how can we prevent bad things to happen. But another way of acting is to say, okay, let's look how good people can be, what do they do to get everybody as the good ones. And so that's an approach that is not very done very often in the medical field. So on first examination, and it's very light, yes, people with a single left ventricle seem to be doing better than a single right ventricle, which is kind of expected, but it's early days and it's not written in stone. And the people, usually people who were more, maybe had a higher degree or more educated, had a better exercise capacity. A lot of people in the medical, working in hospitals, nurses, doctors, echo technicians, and so I think the people are more sensitive and to their health, and I suspect, but we're going to check that these people are doing regular exercise. I know some of them, and I know that the one I know who are in that group are doing, you know, with an extreme discipline, 1.5 hours, 3 times a week of exercise. The other little finding, if I still I can take your time, is Rachel put a patient with a Fontan on a recumbent bike. So they have a table where they can do echo at the same time that the patient is cycling. And you know that in the Fontan circulation, the blood goes passively from the body into the lungs. So you and I have the blood that is pumped by the heart into the lungs. So if you look at an echo on the pulmonary arteries, the lung arteries, you see ejections of the blood into the lungs. In a Fontan, it's no ejections. Okay, it goes through, but not with pulse wave. And you put somebody on the bike, you see that. And when you put somebody on the bike, you do right kick, left kick, and so right kick, left kick, and every time you pump your muscles, you have actually pulsatile flow into the lungs. And so it's amazing because the people have said that it's because you have no stretching of the lung arteries that they're getting a bit shrink with time, and that's maybe causing the Fontan circulation to fail on the long term. So it's possible to wash it out by, you know, having pulsatility if you're exercising. Bicycle, and so I have a slide now in my talks where you have a desktop with a bicycle under it, or you have desktop with a computer and a treadmill. And so if you're a Fontan, that's what you should have, how you should have your desktop organized. Yeah, so pump your muscle.
So sometimes for parents, because having a child with CHD can be really traumatic, and you've seen some pretty shocking things from the very beginning from a lot of the time, you might naturally have an instinct to want to protect your child, or you might feel a little cautious. What would you say to parents about, from the start, instilling that importance of exercise and, you know, balancing that with being cautious and how they feel about the experience? Okay, so I'll say it at the beginning, at the end, in general terms, if you want to start training exercise, if you're not used to it, before you start, you should have a session with your cardiologist, and your cardiologist should put you likely on an exercise bike, just to test you, exercise bike or a treadmill if it's a younger child, but just to test your exercise capacity and see what your body, what your heart does on exercise. Okay, so that's it. That's one general rules. But the great concern of everybody when you do exercise and you have congenital heart disease, whatever type of heart disease, is to have a certain characteristic. Okay,
So sudden cardiac arrest has been said to happen often in the way that the people with Fontan, would die. And it's actually a rare occurrence. So it's an unusual way to die from Fontan by just sudden cardiac arrest. The people say that maybe at the most 10–11% of all the death would be sudden death. But that's an exaggeration, because as soon as you don't know what happens and there may be something really wrong that you haven't investigated, you classify that as sudden death. So it's likely that really the risk of some problem with your rhythm or your heart suddenly collapsing suddenly is extremely small. We had international collaborations now. I've been in a room full of hundreds of cardiologists, and we asked the question around who had ever seen an adverse event during an exercise testing, where you test yourself to the maximum of your possibility. Zero. So we look at the whole literature. There's no adverse event that can be associated to exercise with the Fontan circulation. There are, of course, some restrictions, because that's what everybody said. I've recently reviewed the data from the registry for one particular condition that I thought may give a written problem and sudden death, and that is called pulmonary atresia with intact ventricular septum. Unless you don't know, if your child doesn't have the disease, you have no chance to remember. But those whose child have the conditions will remember. So pulmonary atresia, intact ventricular septum. In that setting, you can have coronary abnormalities, so the abnormalities of the feeding of the little vessels giving the blood and oxygen to the heart. And that's a substrate where I would be cautious with maximal exercise, and I think it's very important to have an exercise testing, even if you're not intending to participate to an exercise training program. That's one subset of patients where I would be cautious, and I would check by exercise testing. But the short answer, I repeated what I said at the beginning: if you want to start exercising and you're concerned, just see your cardiologist and have an exercise test. You just request to have an exercise test, and you see what happens. Don't be afraid about maximum exercise. Sport is tough by definition. None of us like it. It's painful, and you want to stop as soon as you start. It's the same for everybody, and so you don't have to be afraid. They can push themselves, or they can push the limit, and their body will not do more than what they can do.
Right, that is very good advice. So aside from exercise, what should people be doing to take care of their Fontan circulation throughout their life?
I've talked about exercise. One of the things that is brand new and hasn't been studied a lot is obesity. Obesity is likely a killer for the Fontan circulation way more than anything else. I've discussed with other people, some old cardiologists who know a lot about the Fontan circulation that have seen that. And the US have a higher epidemics of obesity than we do have here, at least in the Fontan circulation, and they see specific issues. I would say that healthy lifestyle habits are probably way more important if you have a Fontan circulation than if you don't have one. And so eat well, not being obese, to exercise. The thing is that I think that we're going to move towards a care in the future decades, maybe 10 years, I don't know, where the patient will have his treatment in his hands more than right now. Right now, you go to your doctors, and most of the time you just do what you're told. And somehow, I think that it is nice for you to know about your conditions. I want everybody at least to know their cardiac morphology. You have double outlet right ventricle, you have a double in left ventricle, you have a hypoplastic left heart, you have pulmonary atresia, whatever. You should, every kid should know the name of their condition and the name of the operation they have. You have to be interested. You have to know what drugs you're taking, why you're taking it, and I think that you have to take part to your care.
Perfect, thank you. The Fontan may not be a person's last procedure. What should people know about life post-Fontan regarding possible additional procedures?
I was asked last year to present a talk about reoperation after the Fontan procedure, and I thought that's a really stupid topic. And then when I dig into it, I found quite interesting that, okay, once you had a Fontan, well, heart transplantation, we've discussed about that. It's not for everybody, about 3% of them get a heart transplantation at this stage, probably more of them should. Only 1% of the patients, I think, had a re-intervention on the Fontan circuit. It's like what? Is there 99% of the patients who have a perfect Fontan circuit with no distortion, no obstructions? No way. Only 3% of the patients had done something by catheter or by surgery into the lung arteries. We know what is lung arteries. I can guarantee you that 97% of the patients do not have perfect lung arteries. And you need perfect lung arteries to have a perfect Fontan circulation. And then we found out that a valve of single ventricles are failing at a much higher rate than we would have expected. I was thinking that if you pass the Fontan operation, you know, before that you may have the risk of the valve failing, sometimes we do operation, but actually we saw that there's a gradual degradation of the valve, not all the ventricle, but the common AV valve, so people who have unbalanced AVSD, the tricuspid valve, if you have a single right ventricle, more than all the other valves, but to the point that there's some degree of leakage in close to half of those who have these two types of valves by the age of 25. And we know that if you have a valve leakage, it impairs the Fontan circulation. And so the operation we can do for that are not always very good. They're technically more demanding than in patients with two ventricles. We don't, you know, half of these repair tend to fail within 5 years. And maybe we need to do some valve replacement. So I don't know what the solution is, but as we have more and more of people with a Fontan circulation surviving to adulthood and getting, you know, growing up and getting older, I think we're going to have to redo something. So I'm afraid for the bad news, if it's a bad news, but the Fontan may not be the last of operations. But the problem is that most of you, you know, with the Fontan circulation are doing very well. And so the cardiologists are very reluctant to offer an operation, which has danger, does not always work well, in people who are going to work, have kids, and do their jobs, and pay tax. And so it's difficult to get somebody who seemingly does well to have a re-intervention. And we're going to have to define at what stage. Can we find out there's a stage where we have to do something and what? And so on my side as a doctor, I like to discover new things, so that's exciting. I hope it's not too scary for the people, but I would think that you want to optimize your Fontan circuit. You want the things inside your body to be absolutely fine, and you know, something, it's kind of normal that you do something at, you know, 3, 4, 5 years of age. It's not good forever. You may have some tweaking and adjustment to do, and it may not be by surgery, it may be by other things. Thank you so much.
I really appreciate your time today. Is there anything else you'd want to say to the community before we wrap up?
So there's I've been influenced by a sentence, and I've put that out and I've published that now this year. And the sentence is inspired by John Fitzgerald Kennedy. And what I say is, ask not what your Fontan can do for you, but rather ask what you can do for your Fontan. And that's valid on both sides. So if you're patient and you have a Fontan, well, you cannot complain about your Fontan circulation if you don't exercise, if you don't have a healthy lifestyle, if you do not participate to research, because if you do not participate to research, nobody will know how to better treat you. And then on the doctor's side, it's okay to wish that, you know, these patients have a difficult circulation, but, you know, you should do everything you can so that they have a good heart function, that the heart contracts well, that the pulmonary arteries are right, the valve is functioning well, and there's no kink anywhere in the Fontan circuit. So we have to do our job, and then we can complain. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Yves. We'll put some links attached to this video on how you can get involved in research with the Fontan Registry and get in touch with them and also with ANZFAC. Thank you so much, and thank you, Yves.